Hello, and welcome to another very special week-long edition of my Arundel Biz podcast. I'm Grayson Orfe.
And I'm Rosa Cruz, keeping the seat warm for Allison Akers, who is taking a much-deserved day off today. And if you tuned in yesterday, you'll know that it is Maryland Economic Development Week, which is very special for us here at Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation. And we're doing a special podcast series this week called It Takes a Village. So it's our chance to spotlight all the resources and partners in this community that really make Anne Arundel the best place, which is a great phrase put out by our county executive, Stuart Pittman. So yesterday, we spoke to a program manager at the library to talk about how they are enhancing their programs with more STEM activities. And today, we're going to continue the talk about STEM by talking to one of our partners who is really supportive of a lot of initiatives going on and around Fort Meade. Tim, thanks for joining us today. Why don't you say a little bit about yourself and your organization?
Thanks for having me.
Sure.
My name is Tim O'Farrell. I'm the general manager here at the Fort Meade Alliance. So I am the staff lead for the organization, working directly with our board of directors, which is made up of about 25 leaders from the region. Fort Meade Alliance is a regional organization. We're really obviously focused heavily on the missions and supporting those who serve, live, work, and support the many missions at Fort Meade. We're an organization that is diverse both in geography as well as representation. People think of Fort Meade, they think of defense contractors, and right away they're like, "Oh, you guys are all those big defense contractors," and that's true. We do have about 54% of our membership make up companies that are in direct support to the missions at Fort Meade. So, what does that mean? They're contracting with them. They're contracting to support the NSA, DISA, Cyber Command. There are 119 organizations on Fort Meade right now, many of them having contracting components. So when you look at our membership, you see a good percentage of those really supporting those missions and through contracting and business opportunities. But the balance of it represents the community as a whole. Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation is one of our partners, as is 229 other organizations right now. Their companies, their governmental organizations, their school systems, their universities, finance, legal, construction, commercial real estate. It's very diverse and very representative of what this region entails, and that is a vibrant economic region, home to some of the most brightest people, best schools, toughest traffic. We're working on that. But just full of tremendous opportunity. Tremendous opportunity because Fort Meade has a role as the state's largest employer. There's 56,000 folks that go to work every day on the fort. And I think in the last Maryland Department of Commerce released in 2018 their economic report, and I think the payroll impact alone was over $9 billion annually, and an economic impact of about $28 billion annually. So it's a significant resource for this area, and it just happens to be next to about 5 miles away from the state's largest tourist attraction with the Arundel Mills and the state's number one port, which is the BWI airport. So there's a lot of activity around here, and our role is just to keep an eye on what's happening in the region, educate, communicate inside and outside the fence line, and look for opportunities where our partners can make a real good positive impact, whether it's for the military and their family, whether it's in supporting the small businesses, which AEDC is a huge partner with us, or most importantly, and one of the things that's most dear to many of our members, supporting the military and their family that live and work on Fort Meade. Right. Of that 56,000, over 16,000 of them are men and women in uniform, and they're serving there every day. And something happened significantly. It became official in May of 2018, I believe it, when General Nakasone assumed control of both U.S. Cyber Command and NSA. When he took command of Cyber Command, they also stood up Cyber Command as a combatant command. And what that means is it's now a forward operating base for the military. People don't know that. They're like, what does that mean? I see people, men and women, going in uniform and civilian clothes. They're going to work there every day, and I imagine it's NSA, so they're doing a lot of computer work, some crypto. But what does that really mean? Well, with Cyber Command, the Cyber Command, General Nakasone and his team are responsible for all of our doctrine, for protecting the cyber domain, defending, attacking, understanding the impacts, the risks, and everything related to what could happen in that cyber domain. And thanks to the Internet of Things, thanks to this podcast right now, all of our lives are so intertwined with cyber that we're so critically dependent on it. Well, that's their mission, is to protect it. So they bring the best and brightest men and women, and they deploy them to Fort Meade to support that mission. And you combine that with the NSA's already critical mission in supporting the war fighters that are near and abroad, and the missions that the stressors and the things that come with dealing with such a critical mission of gathering intel, sharing that intel all the way down the line that leads to some critical, life-altering decisions for enemies and for our service members and our DoD civilians. It's a really high-stress, high-importance mission, and we have it all here central at Fort Meade. So whenever our organization can step into the fray and really say what can be done to make these men and women feel like they have the resources available and they have the support from the community and the understanding of understanding that there are folks that want to be there for them since they're there for us on the front line. That's what the FMA does. We step in, and it's highlighted with the Coon Hall project that we've done.
Could you talk a little bit about the Coon Hall project? Because I don't think a lot of people realize that the people working on Fort Meade, and they are working 24/7 on our national cyber protection, that they can't go home and talk to their spouse about if they had a bad day. So
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that project and how that's supposed to, respond to giving services to the men and women at Fort Meade who have that particular unique work situation.
Well, every job has its stressors, obviously, but when you combine literally life and death decisions and results from some of the decisions and activities that are being done in this workspace, and then you wrap it around a clearance shield, meaning that 99%, and that's a figure that I'm using more for making an example than accurate, but about 99% of all the work being done inside the NSA is at the highest level of clearance. Okay. Cyber Command, high levels of clearance. DISA, clearance levels. And what that means is, you're absolutely right, Rosa. They go in, they're dealing with situations. They're dealing with high stressor, data collection, real world information being collected, deciphered, decrypted, decided on, and executed upon. And they do this in a room that makes them feel like they are in that theater. So if they're dealing with something in the Middle East at a trouble spot that we're really concerned about, they feel like they're in that space. And then they work their shift. And it is a 24-hour shift, 365 days, no snow days. They walk out and they walk into the local store, grab a cup of coffee, come home, and they're back in normal lives with us, and they sit home with their spouse and, honey, how was your day? And they go, good. And that's a real problem. So Fort Meade, unfortunately, does have a higher rate of ideations of stress. We have a slightly higher rate of even suicidal ideations. We have obesity. We have other type of family issues that you would expect from people dealing with a high stress situation because of that. Because not only the mission, but the security shield that they're wrapped within. So our leadership, you have to give them a lot of credit. They did they sort of had a pilot project a few years ago. During the surge, Walter Reed and Bethesda, they were still separate at the time, unfortunately saw a dramatic increase in the people they were serving in their hospital, and they needed to find temporary wounded warrior facilities. They chose Fort Meade because Fort Meade was ready. What was great at that time was the leadership from the garrison side. This is from the Fort Meade garrison. looked at their budget for creating a Wounded Warrior Facility Center, and they said, listen, I think I can build a building and outfit it at this size, but the capacity that I feel that's needed, they thought at first maybe 28 soldier, sailor, airmen, Marines. I think by the time we were done, it was up to 180, 190 people served there at the Warrior Transition Unit. I can build a facility about this size and it's outfitted, but if I double that, I wonder if the community would be able to step up. And the FMA said yes. And so within about 120 days, we raised $160,000. And we completely outfitted the facility and gifted it to the Army. And we did a big ribbon cutting. We created a facility that was critically needed, and we provided the capacity that everyone felt was necessary. So what do you do next? We continue to listen. We continue to build and foster relationships with the community inside and outside the fence. And they said that this word resiliency kept coming up. Okay. Resiliency has a lot of meanings. It's important that our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines, coasties, that when they come back from being deployed, that they're able and ready to redeploy or return to the community, return to their families. So how do we make them more resilient? How do we help their families be more resilient while their loved ones are deployed? Or how do we help them with dealing with the missions at Fort Meade? So I kept hearing this word resiliency. And at that time, I want to give credit to Dion Viergotz, who's the head of our foundation. He was president of the Fort Meade Alliance at that time. And Lisa Decker, who runs our military family committee, and Jay Baldwin, they said, let's do more than listen. Let's start surveying. And we built a team with folks from inside the garrison and Kimbrough Ambulatory Care Center, which is one of the 119 organizations. Right. We said, let's start to see what meets resiliency criteria that's being offered on the installation and see where the gaps are. And let's start seeing what we should be doing as a community. So one of the first things we created was a resiliency brochure, map, and branding so that those who were on Fort Meade could see that resiliency was important, and we gave them a place to find all the different services that they may need on the post. And we said, okay, we're all committed to resiliency. The next step we said was, well, where are the gaps and how could we support it? There were things like nutritional cooking were really high on people's wish list, is yoga, educational opportunities, counseling. Counseling in a building that doesn't say, I have a problem when I walk into it.
Right.
Really important. Because you don't want your sergeant to know you're dealing with an issue. Exactly. You feel it's going to come back against you. And that's not the right way to think. But it is the way it's happening.
It's just what happens. Yeah.
Right. So we started specking out what a resiliency building would look like, and I think our first requirement came back, it was 100,000 square feet, and we had everything in there. It would have been phenomenal. It would have been a phenomenal $150 million project. But we then brought it back to reality and said, what is essential? And where is the future of the Army going? Because Fort Meade is an Army installation, primarily in name only. The garrison is responsible for the real estate and then the fence line and many of the programs in it, but it also has 118 or 19 organizations on there, all with their varying degrees of power, influence, and budget. So we needed to listen and really think about what the direction of the military was, the Army in particular, were going with Fort Meade, and we saw that funding was being continued to be compressed. So we said, well, let's think about outside the fence line, bringing the outside in. And so it all culminated together in a building. And I think it was Colonel Foley who savvily identified Coon Hall. And he also partnered that with the education activity, which is a mandated, funded activity that the Army must provide, which is really important. That's where we have our Arundel Community College providing classes, University of Maryland, University College, Central Michigan. This is where soldier sailors and their families can go and get certifications training, take courses, testing that they need to get their certification or show that they're progressing in their training at the Army. It was in a facility that is completely inadequate. And then we had an abandoned building that was looking for a new purpose. It's a historic building. It was the former Distinguished Visitors Quarters. So, you know, if you were a Port in General and you needed a place to stay that night, you stayed there. But
now, when in speaking about that as well, there was a is the military spouse job fair? Is that one of the things that you guys offer in that area, or where's that?
That's a big,
in
actually, so Coon Hall is only about 9,000 square foot, 3 floors. Right now it's only two working floors. The third we're going to renovate and make it operational. That's a big event, and the Post puts that on. We just
Okay.
simply augment it and say, hey, this is a perfect opportunity for us to step in and help. So they do that every, I think it's every May.
Okay.
And they do it at the last couple of years at McGill Training Center, and they have tables for people to go around. Fort Meade Alliance, what we do is we have a respite center where we have the enlisted and officer spouses clubs there to greet the spouses, see if they need assistance in other areas besides finding employment. We've got food, snacks, relaxation stations so that they can kind of break away from the stressors from having to walk around the room and try to figure out what's next for them.
Yeah.
But this whole Coon Hall exercise is giving us the spouse appreciation component to their job fair. We're looking at nutritional courses because we're building in the third floor a teaching kitchen because that's important because I told you that's one of the things that's really important to them. We're going to have great adequate classrooms and testing facilities that you would expect from if you were going in there and you were trying to accessing educational activities. But on the first floor, we're going to have this resiliency lobby, and you'll be able to come in there and definitely sign up for your courses or sign in to take your class or your test, but you'll be able to step to the right, and you'll be able to ask someone from Kimbrough, hey, I've got a problem, I want your help. We're putting an amazing kiosk system together, and the first one will go in the Coon Hall, and that's going to provide them direct access to information for other help around the installation, but also here in Anne Arundel and Howard and all the surrounding communities that support Fort Meade. So
that's a great thing because it feels like you guys are not only worried about the work, but it's like the whole person. So it's like it's because a lot of times because I came from like a clearance background and working in defense systems and things like that. So what ends up happening is that you are going home, you're not saying anything, but then at the same time, it's kind of like your spouse is looking at you like, what in the world is wrong with you? Like, what's happening?
Yeah,
but it's like,
in different ways.
I wish there was a place like this where you can just come in and just, have that support that you need, because especially during this time of like mental health and things like that, it's just, it's so important to a person to know that they're not out there alone. And I think you guys are doing an awesome job of that.
Well, there's a lot of groups that are doing an awesome job. Our role is to connect those groups with these opportunities. So we're not always looking to bring an FMA program together. We're literally looking for how can we help existing really great resources in the community and just make the two parties aware. And that's why something like the kiosk and a center, which is just a big broadcast mechanism that we care, we're here, and there are resources for you, is so critical.
Yeah.
So I'm going to jump in and talk about partnerships for a little bit, because we've used other keywords in the last couple minutes of conversation that kind of feed into that as well. When you're talking about job opportunities for spouses and educational opportunities, talk a little bit about the Fort Meade Alliance's partnership with a school system like Anne Arundel County Public Schools, and how that partnership is really trying to enhance STEM education, really to feed the pipeline of jobs that are going to be coming online at Fort Meade and in the surrounding community.
Yeah, a lot of credit for our efforts goes to Penny Cantwell, who's our education workforce chair. She had the vision almost a decade ago that us as an organization, we need to not only look at education as how can we help it, but let's take a long-term view and see. At this time, BRAC was coming, and there was 6,000 new jobs. That's opportunity. And she was very visionary in saying, let's bring together the folks that really understand what this opportunity is, and let's have a discussion about what we should be doing to stimulate opportunities to support these missions. Because as they come here, they're going to need a continuing flow of employees, because people age out, they change jobs, but the mission stays the same and stays as critical. And in the cyber realm, has even grown. So partnerships are how we've really been successful. We do have some of our own programs that we put together. We have STEM Family Night tomorrow night at Arundel Mills Mall. It's a partnership with Gene Condon and the Mills Corporation. It's a great program. Gets kids involved in seeing real This is more middle schoolers, gets them early to get excited about the cool technology we have in the region. But we form partnerships with Anne Arundel Workforce Development, helping transitionals, military. That's military who said, I'm leaving in the next year or so, understand how to be successful in that transition, whether it's getting further education, connecting to employment opportunities, certifications, and other wraparound services. Really proud of the work that they did, and we were just pleased that they would consider us a partner in that. Anne Arundel County Public Schools and many of the school systems around here, the K through 12s are a particular source of pride for us for what we've been able to do. People don't know that there are Meade High School. There's 7 schools in that feeder system. 5 of them actually reside on the installation itself, on their physical grounds. So, and that includes Meade High School, and it's really important. It's important for multiple factors. The obvious one, we need kids to be excited about STEM, understand security clearances. We have a program called Project Scope that makes them aware of life choices, impacts on getting these clearances, and the great pay differential the clearances come with. But we recognize, you've got to be able to get them excited about the careers. You've got to get them to understand that behaviors impact their ability to secure the careers. But you also have to give opportunity to everybody equally and as fervently as you can. Right. And so when you look at the Meade feeder school systems, they do have a good percentage of military families. Some of the schools are below 20% and some are north of 30% population of military. But then there's the general community that represents the communities that feed into each of those elementary, middle, and essentially up to Fort Meade. That's important that we give those children the opportunity for something that's so nearby, that's something that affords us bringing people from inside the fence line to teach these kids, to be exposed to these kids so that they can see what a career is, not just in the military, but in the civilian side, see the amazing things that are being done there and get them really excited. But we also have another mission, and that is the fort, as I've told you how critical and important it is, has to recruit the best and brightest. And they're fighting against Google, and they're fighting against Apple, and now we have Amazon HQ2 coming. Right. I know it's in Virginia, but it's coming here essentially. And so we have to be able to compete with those environments. And the military also has to bring their best and brightest to this challenge. And so what we need to do is ensure that we build a school system that's reflective of what they understand is important for their children. Being in cyber careers, they know what kind of math they want their students to be taking. They know the touches in IT and cyber security and computer science that they want them to have access to. They want them to have access to a healthy community, a safe environment, good athletics, and extracurricular activities too. So we've really worked closely with Dr. Marie McMahon and Dr. Arlotto through Dr. McMahon and many of the folks in the Anne Arundel County Public School systems to secure funding for additional programs. About a year and a half ago, Anne Arundel County Public Schools secured about $5 million to build a real rich cyber thread through all of those Meade schools. Actually, not just, and that will be the template that spreads through the county. So in Meade High School, I think we went from maybe 1 computer science class last year. This year we're to 10, and we look to expand that significantly. Wow. Want to thank the county executive and the local development council because they did also fund a grant for us to create a cyber range in the Meade High School. We're really excited about this cyber range because this will be a safe playground for them to test and play with cool tools, the same tools that Cyber Command and NSA really and DISA really value. So they have a place that they can go, they can learn, they can test, it'll be built in. It's as much a physical space as is a virtual space, so that as the students are walking down the hall, they look in the space and go, what's going on in there? So they poke their head in and they come in. Because we just want to keep stirring and this excitement about cyber and computer science and their phenomenal Homeland Security signature program that they have there. I think Mr. Hopper over there told me there was 250 freshmen in the program this year. It's a phenomenal program. And people go, well, I don't understand why Homeland Security is there. Well, the schools have seen a lot of evidence that youth choose their careers based on proximity. Sure. Mom or dad, a neighbor, or a big entity like Fort Meade and the 119 organizations there. So it's a really great success story. You know, all things have fits and starts, but they've arrived at a good spot, and it's something that we should celebrate more of.
Cool. Now, since you've been here, what are some of your biggest accomplishments?
Since the Fort Meade Alliance is now, I think, entering its 16th year, you know, I already spoke about the Wounded Warrior Transition Unit. That's an early one. We received the Army's, one of the Army's highest community awards for that effort. We just were notified on Friday that we may be receiving another one in December for the Coon Hall project. So you have to point to those two. Yeah, definitely. Because they're big, broadcast, magnifying events that people can point to and say, this is why this organization is important. And that's the Fort Meade Alliance, being a little selfish there. But you have to also point to our continued inroads for both representing being that honest broker between the many organizations inside the fence line and the community around it. We've really come into a place where I think any organization can feel they can come, become involved with us, engage with us, and have access to understanding what's really happening in this region related to the installation and all of the opportunities there. So I think, you know, if you look at our military and family committee, it sits around this table once a month. We have folks inside and outside the installation. People who may be doing like real high-tech cyber jobs, they sit around this table because they get to talk about, well, I want to be able to teach nutritional cooking to the military, or I think I might have a great opportunity to help soldiers dealing with this, or an airman dealing with that, and I just want to help. And it's kind of outside their normal day job. It's a great way to really do something different with their day and their volunteer time. I have to celebrate what Bill Donahue and his Meade Business Connect Committee has done. It's evolved from, we did this one industry day forecast every year. It sounds kind of boring and dry, but it's a great partnership for NSA, DISA, and U.S. Cyber Command to come out to an uncleared community and explain what's important to them for the next year to 18 months. There's a lot of cleared folks there, but there's a lot of folks like me and Rosa that aren't cleared, and we need to understand too to be able to articulate to the community. Really valuable program. But they've expanded it. Once a month, tomorrow we'll have a dozen or so folks, small businesses around the table at no charge to them, beyond their membership, to talk with some real senior leaders about how they built their business. And recruiting is a big challenge for them. Tomorrow we're going to be talking about recruiting. And so they'll be able to go almost one-on-one and say, hey, I'm struggling with this issue, and try to solve it. So we do a different topic almost every month. Our partnership with NSA and their Business in a Minute program, we've really shaped that into a strong connector for the NSA and the large primes to help small businesses really understand how do they build relationships and build business opportunities. Yeah. And because of the success with that, on December 3rd, we've just announced we have a small business forum. So the small business offices of the U.S. Cyber Command, which was just stood up with about a month ago, DISA's, which is an award-winning one, as is NSA's, the three of them are going to host a half-day seminar for small businesses that they've asked us to create for them. So it's a perfect example of successes that we've had. And then I could spend the entire time talking about the accomplishments of what we've done with education. We have the education center inside of Coon Hall. We've got successful programs like Tech Mania that will be on November 21st right here at Arundel Mills at the community college. We'll have 180 ninth graders. We'll reach out, touching them, getting them excited about what our members do. And they're from Anne Arundel and Howard and Prince George's. We'll do the same in the spring with Hartford, Baltimore County, Baltimore City, and Carroll. So great programs are getting kids engaged. We'll have 400 families probably tomorrow night stop by STEM Family Night. We've adopted 2 high schools in Baltimore City, and we're putting them through an accelerated math program that's giving them many high school students always have an opportunity for dual credit. Mm-hmm. Dual credit is where you're getting both your high school and your college credit at the same time. Yep. But these two populations, they're not receiving that opportunity as readily as others. So we're able to put them in a program that our employers, our member employers say, this is valuable. Yeah. If you get them here, and then you introduce them to our next partners, which are many of the community colleges. Penny brought over from the West Coast a group called Growth Sector, and they have a product called STEM Core, and we piloted it at the Community College of Baltimore County. We've done it for 2 years. It's been successful, and we now have expanded that to both Howard and Anne Arundel community colleges. So next fall we'll have another program. There's just so much that we're doing in the education side. We have a steering group. We put some of the best minds in the region around the table and said, what do we need to do to really foster the right kind of opportunities and environment for both employers, universities, and students. And we'll be debuting a white paper in the next couple of months on some of those findings. And I've seen it. I've been part of the preview and the drafting of it. There's really good information in there. So we have as much to be excited about for the next 10 years as we've had for the last 15.
Well, I can't wait to hear some of the new announcements that you all are going to be rolling out over, gosh, just even the next several months, because I've heard bits and pieces about, especially some of the education projects and the grants. So I can't wait for sort of the grand openings or the real formal announcements to some of the things that you guys are working on.
And we're excited too.
Yeah.
Thank
so
you.
Tim, thank you so much for your time today. It was great to do sort of a deeper dive into the different facets of what the Fort Meade Alliance does to serve the employees and the families, not just on the installation, but in the area, really. And we really value our partnership with you all, and are very excited to continue working with you on behalf of the Anne Arundel Economic Development Corporation and certainly the county as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for allowing us to be part of the opportunity that the region has, part of those who are helping impact it in the right way. So it's our pleasure.
Absolutely. Well, that's it for today, guys. We will see you tomorrow where we'll have another great interview for you. You can see this on all our social media channels, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere, billboards, space, everywhere. So we thank you guys for joining us, and thank you so much, Tim.
Thank you, Grayson.